everybody, and welcome back to Blue Jays Today. Happy New Year, everybody. We've got 2 more days left of 2024, and man, what a wild ride it has been for the Toronto Blue Jays. You know, we go from, hey, maybe we have a chance with this new defensive mindset and everything like that, like we can go and compete this year, to now we're in the pits of hell because the Blue Jays, they have not made any massive signings. The only move they made is Andres Gimenez trade, and now we're looking at a 2025 where we're looking very bad right now, everybody. However, there is an opportunity for the Blue Jays to still bring in somebody, and that guy could be Anthony Santander, that the Blue Jays have badly coveted this entire offseason. Are they going to go and finally get somebody on this team, and will that make a difference? We're going to cover all that in this podcast and more. I'm your host, Adam Peddle.
And I'm your host, Nicholas Playlog. Santa didn't come this year, man. I was waiting. You know, I hope all you guys had some great, holidays with your families and stuff like that. And, I got some good stuff, right? Some good golfing attire and, some various other things. But I was really waiting on that one big-time shiny new toy, not for me, but for the Toronto Blue Jays. Santa, where were you? Ross, where were you, man? Maybe they were just a little bit late to it, guys, because Anthony Santander would, in fact, be a shiny new toy for these Toronto Blue Jays to plug into that middle of the lineup. And apparently, according to some various reports, we are the favorites right now, or front runners, I should say, right alongside the LA Angels for Anthony Santander. Kind of a surprising team to be up against. Usually it's the Giants and the Yankees and everything like that. But apparently, the Toronto Blue Jays are the front runners for Anthony Santander right alongside the LA Angels. What do you make of all of this, man? Do you think there's any chance that we actually cross the finish line? Because I am so sick and tired of being the front runners, favorites, in the mix, interested in, you fucking name it, and then coming up short.
Well, I'll say this. I mean, as time goes on, it gets more and more likely we will sign someone, because these free agents are starting to run out of potential suitors. I mean, hell, it's between, Tigers have an interest, but the Blue Jays and the Angels are the front runners. And if that tells you anything, that means we're now entering the bottom of the league type of teams right now. Like, literally the bottom feeders of the MLB are looking at you to be signed. But do I make anything of this? No. I mean, look, there's so much we can talk about, so many things that happen this holiday season that we can look at and go, well, things aren't just working for the Toronto Blue Jays. When you offer Corbin Burns the most amount of money in franchise history and he still goes and signs with the Diamondbacks, that tells you something. When you lose on Juan Soto, you're not really offering too much. That tells you something. When you're losing on all these free agents right now, you're not even getting Teoscar Hernandez to come back, and he's getting paid $22 million per year with deferral money, which you didn't want. You could have went to the Blue Jays. Maybe he could have got more. Maybe they didn't offer him that amount. I don't know. But that tells you something. I mean, it's the same case right here. The only way the Blue Jays actually land in Anthony Santander is there's just no other option that's really good for him.
Well, let me put it this way, man. All of those guys that you're bringing up, I hear what you're saying, and I get your argument, right? At the end of the day, for somebody like a Teoscar Hernandez, and we'll talk about him and missing out on him more later in this podcast, but when you're comparing Dodgers to the Jays,
it's not even close.
Not a comparison.
Not even a comparison.
And for somebody like a Corbin Burns too, hey, we were offering a lot of money, but when you factor in the taxes and you factor in just from a pound for pound basis, like the Diamondbacks, the Jays,
89 wins last year they got.
Still not very close either, right? But let me put it this way. If this report is actually true, and it's the Angels up against the Blue Jays,
we have a shot, you think?
I mean, well, this is the one time that, your 74 win total doesn't actually come into play anymore, because you're up against a team that's even more shit than you.
Right.
And that's hard to do right now if you're the Toronto Blue Jays. So for that one reason alone, I have a little bit more faith in this report than some other ones. Like if it was the San Francisco Giants there, if it was just almost any other team, actually, then I might not be feeling that way. But if it's the Angels, then I genuinely think, like, well, we got a couple things on the Angels. Like, you can make some arguments to potentially convince somebody over the Angels.
Well, like, I guess what would be those arguments? Because I can actually think of a couple for the Angels to go over the Blue Jays.
Well, for me, it's weather, geography. Yeah,
geography is better, and I mean, the Angels are going to lose this year. We know that. Where the Blue Jays, I mean, there's so many question marks there. And if you care about winning, I mean, hell, you're at this point. If these are the only suitors for you, Anthony Santander, the Angels with Blue Jays, you're not going on a winning team. You can't be, you're holding out for a winning team right now. You're with the losers now, buddy. You're in the bottom of the league. So I guess with the Blue Jays, the one thing you could say is like maybe we have more money to spend than the Angels right now because we haven't been really spending a lot this offseason, and maybe it makes sense. I don't know.
I would just argue that like this is the type of competition that, is in our ballpark, and I think that we could actually, sway elsewhere, right? And when you're up against some of the, the Yankees and the Mets and everything, that was the whole argument, like why Juan Soto was never going to come here, right?
Right.
Because, well, you got all these other better teams that will offer the same amount of money, and ultimately, he wants to go to the playoffs and, be in the spotlight, and that's totally understandable. And what happened? Well, what everybody expected. This is not one of those teams. LA Angels, is not one of those squads. So I do think that if that report is true and it's between those two teams right now, we do have a legitimate shot. It will once again require, though, and we keep coming back to this, it is going to require Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro on the Toronto Blue Jays to spend. Now, to their credit, and to our dismay, they did offer a shitload of money for Corbin Burnes. It was $250 million. I had an opportunity to break this down a little bit in a podcast just a couple days ago. If you guys haven't already watched it, feel free to go and check that one out. But I know that you haven't had your time yet or your space to kind of bring in what you thought about that whole deal, us offering a lot and him inevitably turning it down.
Yeah, I talk about this on the Bad for Baseball podcast. It's going to come out in a short few hours, but essentially, it was simple. I mean, look, 89-win team, for Arizona. That's obviously great. You have the 80-win team of the Giants and then the 74-win team of the Blue Jays. So major advantage there for Arizona. Then you're getting a team that doesn't have a lot of taxes in the state of Arizona. California has a lot of taxes there in the United States, and obviously Canada has the most taxes out of anybody. So boom, there's another win there, like $210 million. And also you get incentives like opt-outs in that deal, whereas the Blue Jays apparently weren't offering opt-outs. So it's a win-win-win for Corbin Burnes. You can go there to Arizona, maybe have a chance to compete in wildcard games in the playoffs and put up really good numbers with a really decent team behind him and a decent lineup. So for me, it's simple. It told me everything I needed to know that I already should have known, but I didn't want to believe it, was that the Blue Jays never had a chance, and he was just holding out, waiting for the price tag to be driven up by these teams that he didn't want to play for, like the Blue Jays, and waiting for a team that actually makes sense for him to sign.
Sure. Yeah, I get all of that, man, and I think I agree with you on most points there. I think what I really learned by looking at that, and we said, walking into this offseason, the Jays were going to need to overbid for certain players, right? We were going to need to be the highest bidder, and we were going to have to overpay for some guys. What I learned about the Corbin Burnes situation is that we needed to go even crazier than I initially thought, right? Like 10 or 20%, over the next guy wasn't going to cut it, like I really do believe that all of the factors, right? The 74 wins, the Vladdy not being locked up, the geography, the taxes, the uncertainty around Ross Atkins, literally everything that is really coming into play this offseason more than it ever has, because it has now been revealed several times that the Toronto Blue Jays have been right there, like offering the same amount, if not more, than the next team, and they're still losing. So it just goes to show that, like, not only did we need to be crazy, like, this offseason and spending, we almost needed to be, like, fucking psychopathic with it. Like, we needed to be throwing more money than I think anybody thought initially. But it just goes to show, man, like, the situation of this team is really holding us back from being able to go out and to sign anyone. And I guess that alone is why I think when you're up against the Angels, you might have a shot.
We might be in the similar situation as those guys,
it's like we finally have someone we can compete with here.
But I do want to take a moment and talk about that. I want to talk about Teoscar. I want to also finish off Anthony Santander, but I want to take a moment just to talk about that. I mean, look, a lot of you guys have already been saying in the chat, guys, stop it. We're not getting anybody. We're not getting any free agents. We're not going to make any moves. We're not going to be competitive. And I hear you. And don't think I didn't hear that. I mean, hell, I've made video rooms about how, like, this is, 2025 is going to be the season from hell. You thought last year was bad? This one's going to be even worse. And I totally am on that board. But it's just coming into a reality right now where the hopium that I had is fading away. There's not much hopium for me left in this Toronto Blue Jays team. Now, let me propose a crazy question with a little bit of hopium. Is there any reality that we get back to competing at this point.
Well, it's like I think about it. Think about it like a sports game, right? Right now, we're kind of in the third quarter of the football game, and we're down significantly. So yeah, there's still time left, but if the first 2.5 quarters were indicative as to what we're going to be playing like the rest of the game,
right,
we're fucked.
Yeah.
So like realistically, and that metaphor, that analogy is basically me saying, for us to be competitive, the rest of the offseason and free agency needs to be dramatically different than what it's been up to this point. It does need to be a Santander. It probably needs to be a Jack Flaherty.
Absolutely.
It probably needs to be another bat similar
we need
to
a closer
Santander.
too.
So it's like
closer.
Like up until this point, the way that they've been, managing it and handling it and all that stuff, it hasn't been good enough. That's just the case, right? So if that continues, we are so screwed. Even if we get Santander, probably still screwed.
Yeah, well,
we need so many more individuals.
Right, because getting Anthony Santander, I mean, we've been saying all offseason, that's a great piece right there, but that's not the move. You needed Anthony Santander to complement a Burns, complement a Max Fried. I mean, hell, in Dreamland, complement a Juan Soto or whatever, right? You needed, or Blake Snell. You needed a little bit more because, I mean, yeah, adding Anthony Santander, if he does exactly what he did last year, which I think he hit like 240,
44 home runs,
low
800 OPS, but still very, very good.
Yeah, like if he did that again, great. That's a nice protection behind Vladdy. Well, how many more wins does that really get us? I think he had like a 3.5 WAR because the defense isn't super great, as you can see right there. Same with the base running. Okay, awesome. If Bo's healthy again and our pitching rotation is a little bit better than last year, again, more hopium. Nice. What are we at? 78, 79 wins now?
Well, listen, ultimately, there was always going to be a lot of hopium walking into next season anyways. Like, even if you were to go out and get Corbin Burns and Anthony Santander, you're still hoping and praying that you're getting some bounce backs and, not having injuries and all that. And the bullpen, you're still hoping that we were always going to be in that situation. And do not get me wrong, getting Santander for me, that would make watching games next year a lot more entertaining. But that's kind of the way that I'm looking at it now. I don't know if he is going to be the piece that moves the needle, especially when you're looking at guys like the Boston Red Sox, who are really adding right now. You just got Walker Buehler in there.
Buehler. It's a good dart throw to have.
It's a good dart throw. You know what I mean? I do believe that he will be a serviceable player for them, right? And you look at the Yankees, and yes, they lost Juan Soto, but it's just addition for those guys, right? It's going to be very, very difficult to keep up in this talented American League East. So I love that we're front runners for Santander, and I truly hope that Ross Atkins can get this one across the finish line. But like we've said time and time again this offseason, that's got to be the first domino of many. And I just don't know if the way that we're managing it, we're going to see a lot more dominoes after, one or maybe two.
Well, yeah, I want to circle back to what you said where you're like, we needed Corbin Burns to come here. We needed Anthony Santander to come here. And then we need guys to bounce back. And those are, additions to that. If you got to go get Corbin Burns, that's a good chunk of wins right there. Anthony Santander is a good chunk of wins. And now you're like, okay, now we're in the realm. And then adding those other guys puts us into that, competitive atmosphere where maybe we can look at a wild card, maybe you add a closer or whatever. But now you're asking the Blue Jays to not only have bounce backs, but breakouts. You're asking for everything to go right, and that's just not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Now you're asking for Will Wagner to be exactly what he is, a high three, high 200, low 300 batting average, great leadoff guy.
So somebody in the chat saying, is Alan Roden going to win Rookie of the Year?
You're going to need, apparently I saw an article, Alan Roden's the next biggest prospect for the Blue Jays. And if that's our biggest next prospect, no disrespect to Alan Roden, I've been in this guy's corner for years now.
Yeah.
If that's our biggest best guy, fuck. We're looking at a lot of trouble right now because you need him, you need Will Wagner, you need Jonathan Clase, you need step ups from Ernie Clement. You need Kirk, everything.
Of course, right?
It's a losing situation.
Too much to ask.
Too much.
It's just too much to ask, and I'm not saying that things like this don't happen in sports. Shit. I mean, my Green Bay Packers just lost to the Minnesota Vikings, who were walking into this season. Everybody thought were going to be terrible, and they're incredible now. So things like this do happen in sports, but it requires everything to be different. Before we move on and talk more about some of the free agents and all the rumors and everything like that. I know a lot of people in the chat right now, and I saw it on Twitter, and I've been seeing articles about it. The conversation is really heating up about when are we going to get rid of Atkins? And I feel like we kind of let that one sit for a bit because we just accepted that this offseason was going to be his, and it was going to be John Schneider next year, and we were just going to have to live with it. But like, assuming that the offseason continues at the rate that it's going, which is not going great,
terrible.
And we walk into next season with a similar roster to the one that we have right now, when is enough, right? When are we going to see the actual change? Because there has to be one, right?
I mean, like, we all thought enough was enough already when we had a losing season. But I guess in the, if you do look at the bigger picture of things, I'm now removing myself from the emotions I had at the end of last season, I guess you could say, okay, this was the first bad year, that Ross Atkins had after this whole big rebuild. Okay, fine. You get one more year, and it's with Vladdy and Bo Bichette. Well, this is it. Which you are going to have another bad year, you will be done. And yes, their contracts are up in 2026. I could see an effing reality where they actually keep them, though. Like, they're like, oh, well, they got one more year. We're losing anyways. Well, no real pressure. As long as we're making our money, there's no real incentive to make a change here. But I think from a fan point of view, we already know enough is enough. It's, do they see that? Do they want enough? Do they think enough is enough?
Yeah, because, like, I just keep coming back to the fact that you argued, or not you, but they argued, Ross Atkins and Mark Shapiro, that we were going to be competitive this year.
That's all tactic.
And I was thinking about this, at the trade deadline last season, which is, okay, well, I don't really believe it, because for you to be competitive next year, you got to go balls to the wall in the offseason just go insane mode. And I didn't think they were going to do it, and I'm being proven correct right now, day by day that passes. I hate to be proven right, but it is happening, Like, if you're arguing to everyone that you're going to be competitive next year, and then you walk in with the roster that you have, like, I don't see how you can possibly allow this guy to keep managing this team. Like, I don't want him to be handling trade deadline next year, especially, like, if we're selling. Like, I don't want that to happen.
And unfortunately, he will be.
And I hope that the guys up top have enough, I guess, intelligence, or can see what's happening right now to understand that we cannot allow him to, if we are not a good ball team, be selling people off at the trade. We got to get somebody else in here to do that, right? Like, somebody with a new vision. I'm just so sick and tired of the same old thing, and I know that you guys are as well, right? We get comments all the time being like, oh, stop it, guys. Jays are favorited on this, favorite heavy, whatever. And I'm just as frustrated as all of you with this. Like, I want us to cross the finish line dramatically. Ross Atkins is not capable of doing it. His direction is not a working one. So, I mean, I asked that question because I know it's on everyone's minds. I just gotta hope and cross my fingers that it is coming sooner rather than later.
Bro, we have those bottles for those who are watching all those,
we're not cracking that shit.
We're not cracking. I mean, we still apparently it was the Teoscar and Santander bottle, and now it's just a Santander bottle.
Okay.
Which, if we even crack that, that's a miracle. I'm changing that effing bottle. I'm saving it to we'll crack maybe one of them just for depression. But, like, I'm saving one of them to the Ross Atkins bottle, and that being him being fired. Because look, I get it. Like, I could see a reality where they just keep him until the end of 2026. All right, thank you for your service. Move on. Like, we're already crap. Who cares anyways? And bye. And that would piss out. We're all going to be frustrated for the next 2 years if that happens.
It'd be completely brutal.
And I think we can all agree it's the wrong move. And so there's a colliding force right now where everyone knows it's not right to win. But the other side of things is, well, again, as long as we're making money, do we really care?
Well, that's the thing, like, where there's this blockade of literally Ross Atkins between the Blue Jays and moving on.
What do you value as what do you value being the Toronto Blue Jays and people who own the Toronto Blue Jays? What do you value? Do you value making the money and putting out a team that can fill seats, or do you value winning a championship?
That's the thing, like being just good enough, or actually going out and being a great team.
Because if you wanted to be a great team, you would have done something already.
Yeah.
And you would have either gotten rid of Atkins, or you would have stepped in and said, no, we're going to get Corbin Burns. We're going to do whatever it takes. But no, that's not the case.
Not the case right now, everybody. So that's the situation going on with Ross. That's the situation going on with Santander. Now, I think a good tie-in with Anthony Santander is taking a look at what happened with Teoscar Hernandez.
Right.
I know that a lot of people, myself included, were bummed out that we missed out on Teoscar Hernandez, especially, it's always this fucking thing, right? But especially when you look at the contract and then you go, we could have done that, you know, and it was $22 million a year for Teoscar Hernandez. It doesn't feel like a crazy amount for 3 years. I thought that was market value and pretty good value, actually.
Hell, you even got a club option for his 4th year for only $22 million. I just saw that right now.
Didn't even know that right there, but that's what he's getting paid, and we bring this up not just to, you know, I guess hurt ourselves and think about what could have been, but because I think that this is a relatively good, bar point for what you might expect Anthony Santander to make, give or take, a couple million here or there. He is 2 years younger. However, Teo's been a bit more consistent. However, Santander hits more home runs. It's like
they play the same position, kind of same defensively.
Exactly, right? Like the negotiations will ultimately decide the price, but this is somewhere that, or at least kind of a number that you can look to and expect to see when it's all said and done.
And this I can actually see the Blue Jays getting done. I mean, if we are going to take what Mark said at face value, which I guess is kind of true at this point, where they only have, he said that they're going to spend roughly the same they did last year. Well, okay, you bring over Andres Jimenez and you sign Jimmy Garcia. I think that's comes out to what, $15-17 million, something like that for 2025. Okay, well, you go spend $20 to $23 million on Anthony Santander. Well, that's your budget. There you go. You're done now. That's pretty much it, because your budget last year was $40 million, give or take $50 million. They did tracked it a lot with all the trades, but that's it. And you know what? I could see it happening, but again, I'm not going to get my hopes up. I mean, it's very doable, but we've been saying that for literally every free agent. It's very doable. But this is obviously the most doable because it gets cheaper and cheaper as the day goes on.
Yeah, 100% right. And we have heard that they badly covet him. Now, granted, that was like a month ago or something. So, clearly you don't covet him enough, or else he would have got it done at this point.
Right.
We're hoping that the Toronto Blue Jays can cross the finish line with this one. Again, there needs to be additions to that lineup. It is so abundantly clear. And at least if you get Santander, then I can start to convince myself that, well, with a Bo Bichette bounce back and with a couple other breakouts, maybe it'll at least be an exciting team to watch, if not one that's going to go deep in the postseason. But something to hang your hat on at the very least.
Yeah, and there's a question we're going to get to a little bit later, just talking about that lineup. Now we're at that point where we're turning into the new year. It's like, well, this is kind of what we have. This is the
exactly,
team,
right? There comes a point where you got to start, thinking about, all right, 2025 now, pitchers and catchers reporting and spring training. It's actually not horrendously far away. You got about 4 weeks left before it's you're seriously on to 2025.
Yeah, literally 4 to 5 weeks, and it's February.
Yep.
Hello. When did that happen? Then you got the pitchers catcher report. Yeah, it's close, guys. So we better get something done in this next month, or else this is it. We're in the same spot we were at the end of last year. I think it's a good time to look at, actually, speaking of the upcoming year, we got a little update here. This is just general Vegas MLB win total over under odds. We kind of put this on our Twitter, so if you follow us on our Twitter, you've already seen this, but I figure we should talk about it. It's a pretty good talking point of where we think the Blue Jays are going to land next year,
where Vegas
thinks they're going to land, and then where we think they're going to land based on all this stuff. 76.5 right here, as you can see, is the over under for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Sandwiched between the St. Louis Cardinals and Oakland, or not Oakland, excuse me,
the Angels,
LA Angels
are competitors for Santander, and that's why I think it's more realistic, right, guys? Right? Hey, we look better than those guys.
Well, that's what I mean. When you're competing with some of those other teams, think about the Juan Soto sweepstakes. You had the Dodgers and the Yankees and the Mets and all those other squads all up there, their win totals, and us down here. You could make an argument with Santander and be like, hey, you really want to go to the 71.5 win Angels squad? Come over here for 5 more wins,
Yeah.
But I mean, see, this is a good indicator, obviously, where the Toronto Blue Jays are at right now. Vegas can be proven wrong, and they've been proven wrong time and time again, but they're often on to something here. You know, these numbers just don't come out of thin air. They have a lot of algorithms and a lot of math that goes into projecting this stuff, and it looks like through all of their algorithms and through all of their math, on average in 2025, with the roster we have today, we win 76.5 games. You guys let us know in the chat where you're thinking. Are we going over? Are we going under that? It's a good line because
it is good.
I don't know.
Because here's the thing, right? Like 74 wins last year. You know, you can point a lot of that to the bullpen being hurt, to, you know, Justin Turner not being a great signing, to Bo Bichette being hurt, to more regression from George Springer, and then we traded all these guys at the deadline like Jimmy Garcia, and it's like, okay, we had a terrible. I think we really hit the floors of the floors last year. You know, maybe it could have gone worse, maybe, but
that's what you think now.
Yeah, right. I truly believe we hit the floor of the floor. Now, are we 3 wins better this year? If some of those things go right, where you get and I say if very hard, if you get Bo Bichette bouncing back, and with the bullpen we have in the starting rotation, I mean, yeah, potentially, maybe you get some breakouts, maybe. I mean, the roster is pretty much the same.
It's also like, you know, I don't know how much it's very difficult to factor this in, but something that I'll put out there is like, well, if let's just say that we're on pace for like. We're on pace to go over. We're on pace for like a 78 win season or something like that. But it's becoming abundantly clear by the trade deadline that, you know, well, we're not going to make playoffs with a 78 wins. You know, we need like 10 more than that minimum. There's going to be the possibility this year that somebody like a Bo, even if he is, maybe Bo's playing well,
and he trade him,
well, you trade him, right? Or maybe Vladdy's playing really well and the contract's going, no, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but you know, you're going to run into that.
Yeah.
And that's something to factor in, right?
For sure.
If those boys are doing good and then they leave, well, that's going to hurt.
That's true. I would tend to lean under. However, I just thought of this right now because we're talking about them potentially getting traded at the deadline. Do you think Ross Atkins has the balls to trade Vladimir Guerrero Jr.?
Well, and that's why I brought it up earlier, right? If this team's not doing good, I don't want Ross Atkins to be the guy at the helm dealing with this because, like, I don't know if trading them away is the right or the wrong thing to do. Obviously, there's going to be so many different variables, but I do know that the one guy I don't want handling it is that guy. That's it. That's all I know. So whether he has the balls or not, I'm sure that he'll find a way to make the wrong decision.
Yeah, I know, because I was just thinking of it like, well, very different player, but you've got, you know, the Angels, when they were losing badly, they had Shohei Ohtani, and they just kept him because they needed to soak out just a little bit more money.
Yeah.
Clearly all they care about is the money. So they're like, well, we don't really care if we win or lose or can be competitive in a few more years. Let's just like soak out some more Vladdy and like make a bunch of videos about how goodbye Vladdy and like make it all beautiful and all that. And I see him fumbling it.
Well,
I see him fumbling it
again, man. Like I don't have a whole lot of faith that he will do the right thing, and that's why I have one other guys handling it. You know. So you guys let us know in the chat or the comments down below. Over under 76.5 wins. This feels like a great opportunity to transition and give a little shout out to the sponsor of this video. Whoa, time for a quick shout out to the sponsor of this video. Hit your picks and knock it out of the park with Betway. Scan the QR code down below to join the action. Only available in Ontario. Must be 19 years of older to participate. Please play responsibly. Now everyone, back to the content. Shout out to Betway, everybody, for being absolutely phenomenal, guys. Monday Night Football, one of the last ones of the year. You got the Detroit Lions taking on the San Francisco 49ers. San Francisco at home. Detroit doesn't actually need this win. Like if they get it, then they're back to the #1 seed in NFC, but it doesn't matter because it all comes down to the next week matchup anyways. So it's an interesting one because you got to wonder how much motivation Detroit has to win this one. I know that they obviously every team wants to win everyone, especially when you're competitive and especially when you're coached by Dan Campbell, but I do think that there's a factor of, well, let's save a bit in the tank for next week.
Right.
That being said, though, 49ers are not a great football team this year. No. Where are you going on this one?
Real quick, I'll give a shout out to Scott Farr saying Kikuchi chose Angels over Jays, so there's that. I mean, that's another great point right there. You know, that there's the factors right there. What does he want? He wants to go and play in LA. But right here, speaking of California, 49ers, I mean, yeah, it's a weird place to be betting on the Lions because you don't really know what their team looks like against other teams with how injured they are, and given what you said at the point of the season where they're at. But I know they're the Lions, and I know they like to spank teams. I would feel almost comfortable going. Nah, I mean, I maybe 49ers, plus 3.5. Maybe I think it's gonna be a lot closer. They are gonna be in Santa Clara, and I'm like, maybe that's gonna be a little bit of an advantage right there, home field advantage. Give me the 49ers plus 3.5.
I get it, man. I do understand. Like, these are some good lines right here for a reason, everybody. But if you feel like you got some insider info, then check out Betway and bet alongside with us, everybody. Shout out to the 392 people in here right now, guys. If you haven't already done so, please hit that like button and smash the subscribe button. Sadly, we are not going to be hitting our goal of getting to 30,000 subscribers by the end of the year. We are very disappointed about that, but if we could get to 28,000 subscribers, that'd be 300 in the next day.
Let's go.
That'd be really good. I mean, but we appreciate all you guys.
We appreciate it, right? And we hope that we get some excitement next year, because 30,000 should be happening next year, right, guys? It all depends on the Blue Jays.
It's been a rough year for Jays fans, so it's been tough on the boys as well, and it's just it does make us feel a lot better having all of you alongside with us for this, because Jesus, if I had to do this alone.
Oh my God!
Shit.
You guys are the only reason why we're still going. Like, truly, truly. Let's get to some. And speaking of you guys, let's get to some of your questions. If you haven't already done so, or if you have and your question hasn't come up, submit it again. Sometimes they get outdated with this whole free agency and off season, how things kind of happen. So if you haven't already, submit your questions in the box down below. Shout out to right there. We got Keely Lowry with the subscription. W's in chat for Keely for joining the community.
Yeah, we appreciate you.
But in the description down below, you'll see a link. It's a Google form. Submit your question through there. This is where we're getting the questions. So we got one in here from Dean. This was a few weeks ago. They were saying, do you think there's a chance we trade Bo for Louis Castillo? What do you think about that this offseason?
That's an interesting one, and I love it because we actually found an article earlier today discussing the Louis Castillo trade rumors and just where everything's at.
Shout out to Betway. Every time.
But there was an article that kind of talked about the best fits for Louis Castillo, and the Toronto Blue Jays were up there. Now, one thing about the trade market that needs to be noted is that it's better for us than the free agent market. And actually, we had Joe Siddle on here talking about this and discussing how it's really tough to get teams interested to come to your ball team when you did only win 74 games last year, when you are in Canada, when you have no certainty around the management and Guerrero and XYZ. But trading for players, you don't need their permission. If unless they got a no trade clause. But for a guy like Louis Castillo, you don't need his permission. You just need to get the Seattle Mariners to bite on something. So can you convince them about Bo Bichette for Castillo? Frankly, I don't think so. I think you need a lot more than Bo Bichette for a guy like Louis Castillo, just because,
what's his contract?
I think he's got 2 years remaining, and he is a very quality pitcher. Correct me on that one, though. I think he's got a little bit more time. And when you're looking at Bo, it's like, yes, there's definitely some value there, but coming off the year that he had, more stuff would need to be added, in my opinion, for Louis Castillo.
Wow.
A lot more stuff would need to be added for a guy like Louis Castillo. But it's a start at the very least. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely is a start. However, I will say this, you trade Bo for Castillo, I think we're still moving in the wrong direction. I get it, Castillo's a great pitcher. You have him for time for sure, but Bo is your only other offensive guy on this team. At that point, I'm like, I don't even know what we're trying to do here. We're just trying to keep ball games close. I don't know. We're trying to get through the season as fast as possible. What are we really trying to do? So I don't know. It's a weird one. I could see a deal getting done because of all the starting pitchers left, I mean, if speaking of free agency and trade options, Castillo is the best one. So I could maybe we toss in a Ricky Tiedemann. Maybe that excites them. We trade Ricky Tiedemann and then some. It's going to have to be for a Louis Castillo. We'll see. Man. I mean, what's up?
I'm just looking at it's so tough for me to really get behind. Don't get me wrong, I love Louis Castillo. I think he is a very talented guy. I had him on my fantasy baseball team last year, and he was great for me.
Yeah.
But somebody like a Ricky Tiedemann, I know that Ricky Tiedemann is going to be gone for a year and a half and everything like that with Tommy John and stuff. But when we're really looking at the ball team right now, does it make sense to be trading for a 32-year-old pitcher that's signed for a lot of money again? Don't we already have that? Don't we already have like veteran guys in that pitching rotation that we're supposed to be counting on? If anything, we should be trading for prospects, let alone trading them away.
Well, I hear you. Well, that's the rebuild model you're talking about right there.
Exactly.
But we're not doing that because that doesn't sell tickets.
That's it just doesn't. It just doesn't make
No,
sense.
I know.
Man.
I mean, look, if we're playing MLB The Show and like there's no real fans on MLB The Show, like hell yeah, like scrap it all down, trade everything away, sign a bunch of guys when now they have no money to spend, go for it. It's just they don't see it that way.
Yeah, you got Cole Smith in here saying need a younger team. It's actually crazy how it all happened, right? A couple of years ago, Toronto Blue Jays were one of the youngest teams in baseball. Mm-hmm. And then, I know it's stupid. A couple of years pass, everyone gets older. But we skyrocketed up.
Yeah, because we signed
a bunch of these older guys, right? And now it's like, oh, Jesus, we're old. And our young guys aren't that young anymore. And they're coming up on contracts. And how did all of this happen, right?
Right.
So, yeah, we do need a younger team, but they don't want to do that.
No, they don't. Actually, this might be the first year where we start going down in age because I'm looking at the team right now, and you've got, Will Wagner, 26, Jimenez, 26, Ernie Clemente is 28, Loperfido, 25, I'm 22, Clase.
A lot of mid-20-year-olds that are getting a lot of reps with the current lineup right
exactly
now.
Right. So, I mean, that's an interesting question there by Dean. I think it's interesting. But why is what I'd say. Real no, I don't really see the point. Moving on here, got Michael Missa coming in with a question asking about the projected lineup. That's a good transition. What's your projected Blue Jays lineup with these guys we have right now? Does Will Wagner crack it? Jonathan Clase? Are these guys even worth being excited for? I feel that last question right there. Are these guys even worth being excited for? I'll hand it over to you, Nick. What's your projected lineup? Let's start with that.
Well, oh, Jesus, the whole projected lineup, that one's tough to go through right now, man, because I'm just still holding out hope that, we do end up with somebody of consequence that can kind of move everything around.
Right.
I mean, right now,
with the guys we have right now, yeah.
Right now, I think that you're playing for everyone's upside, so you actually start the year off with Springer probably still at the leadoff spot, but the leash is short.
It's short.
It's a couple weeks, honestly, and if he's looking like garbage, then you're down.
Mm-hmm.
You probably have Bo 2. Honestly, yeah, I'm looking at the Fangraphs thing right now. Mm-hmm. You probably have Guerrero 3, Wagner 4. I mean, that's
just insane.
I don't know how you'd I know he's a lefty and showed good stuff last year, but the guy had what, 100 at bats,
86 plate appearances.
86 plate appearances. That's. I don't think we can be doing that, man.
Right.
And it's crazy to say, but yeah, I think you got to shoot for the upside, so you probably put Jimenez there,
right?
And just hope that he gets back to 2022.
And also, Varsho's injured right now. We don't know if he's going to come back.
So he would be 4 or 5, and then Kirk. And so then I guess it's Wagner, and then the rest of it.
We have a weird ass team, guys. It's a bunch of contact guys with low batting averages, which is the worst type of player, actually.
That's the thing. We don't have. That's why I want somebody like a Pete Alonso. I keep saying Pete Alonso, and Santander would be a great substitute as well. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, you can worry all you want about is this guy going to hit 40 home runs next year? I can guarantee. I would bet my life that nobody on this team hits 40 home runs next year. The only guy that will even get close is Vladdy, and even he isn't known to, at this point, I don't think you can classify him as a power hitter. He's just a good overall hitter, right? We don't have anybody in there that's got 40 home run pop, really.
Right. No, I hear you. Now I'll do something very similar to you, except I'm kind of going off of Joe Siddle's idea where F the leadoff guy this year. Your leadoff guy is Bo Bichette, and then it's Vladimir Guerrero Jr. You're getting the most at-bats from those two guys.
That's true.
Just pound the at-bats for those guys. I want them getting the most reps in the entire game. And then after that, I think, it's the hottest guy is batting 3. Whoever's the hottest guy, maybe you look at spring training, who's hot coming out of spring training. Maybe you do bat Will Wagner 3rd. If he is one of the hotter guy, in the lineup, is it fucking Nathan Lucas? Is he started off the season? I think you don't know what this lineup is. I think it's Bo Vlad and then audition season, and then throughout the season you'll start to learn. If let's say Jonathan Clase is actually him, bat him leadoff. Because he's got great stolen base potential. Is Joey Loperfido good? I don't think so. But whoever is going to be potential to be a top guy, you put him up there. Yeah, it's terrible though. It's terrible.
To answer the second part of the question about whether or not the Jays should be interested or not in or excited or not, I guess, in those guys. I would say that yes and no. I would be very excited about some of those guys if they weren't being relied on in the roles that they are, you know, like if Will Wagner was coming in and it really was just like he was one of the few guys in the lineup that we had for, you know, potential upside, then that's really exciting for me because, you know, like it could hit and it could be great, but like we're dealing with all of that, you know? And because of that, like, let's be realistic here. Not everybody's gonna be a good baseball player, right? Like, Will Wagner might not be good next year, and you know, Alan Roden might not be good, or you name it, right? So I think it's just the situations that they're in. That to me is not the exciting part.
Yeah, like I'm excited that I'll say this: I'm excited that one guy will break out this year. I can give you that.
Yeah,
I can bet that one
should
guy
be good enough. Like kind of like what Spencer Horwitz did last year.
And then we got rid of him.
And
then we got rid of him. We got rid of our only other.
Yeah, like that's so fucky.
If we still had him, I would have told you. Horwitz is batting like 2 or something.
Middle of the
two
lineup.
Or 3. Like,
middle of the lineup. He's there. Yeah. Seriously, like the one other guy that actually showed a little bit of promise last year from an offensive perspective. We traded him away.
Yep. That's right. So now we got to go back to the drawing board and hope we get another breakout.
That's so ridiculous,
It's the stupidest thing I've ever seen in my life.
I mean, like, I like Jimenez, and in a vacuum, it's a good trade.
It is,
like, It's just like, come on, man.
Like, we already have you. You know, we have too many of you. But
also, massive shout out here to Blue Jays Nation. I saw somebody in the chat telling us to pull this up. It's just, it's gonna hurt you guys, but you know what? We love Blue Jays Nation. You should go check them out, everybody. Go read their articles. They got a good one here. I haven't even read it yet, but I mean, more pain. Blue Jays reportedly expressed strong interest, in Gleyber Torres earlier this year. So
I did
just
see that,
put another one into the into that long list of Blue Jays were seriously looking, or front runners, or favorite, or whatever. Right? We are, he's one of the 10 to 20 different guys we've shown strong interest in, and then inevitably didn't come up with.
Dude, the Jays are becoming a big meme. Like, I even saw this once this came out. I saw this being reported on like I think the Baseballer on Instagram. I think that's what they're called. But it's like a meme account about baseball. And like, we were getting memed out, like, Blue Jays, if they, won a championship for being strongly interested in players. And it was like, Alex Rodriguez with a bunch of trophies and stuff. And I don't know. Like, it was just ridiculous. I mean, when I think about that too, like, now I'm really starting to think about it. What does that even mean? Strong interest? Like, were you like, come on, please? Like, we really need you. I'm offering you all this money. Or is it just like, we contacted him and was like, yeah, we really want you to play for us?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what it is. I don't know.
I don't know, and I don't know how seriously we were not interested. Massive shout out here to Good Tea Nice House with the $5 dono, just saying, what did I miss? Did Santander's plane land? Can we boycott Mary Browns until Vladdy signs a pissed off sponsor? Should shake up the front office. Well, I don't really get Mary Browns anyways, but I mean, great stuff. Not sponsored by them.
No, I would love to. That'd be great.
Yeah, but sure. Let's do it all, man. But it just feels like no planes are landing anytime soon. Just before we pivot off of that whole
lineup thing,
or I guess people not wanting to sign here. I even noticed other content creators are coming out here and starting to talk about it. I Talk Studios, you guys have probably seen them. He makes videos just about everything in MLB, and his most recent video is why nobody seems to want to sign with the Blue Jays. I haven't watched it because I could tell you the answer.
I could tell you,
but I mean. Like, it's now becoming a serious conversation here. Yeah. Like, on his thumbnail, he has the words "rejected franchise"
and Vladdy looking all upset.
Vladdy looking all
upset.
That
photo on my hard drive.
Yeah, So I mean, it's now becoming a literal MLB wide conversation as to why nobody wants to come here and why we can't get anybody across the finish line. It is very, very frustrating.
It is. I mean, yeah, there's so many reasons, and I hate it. Now we're at the point now where we have to start accepting reality. Where like the only way we can be competitive and have a future is if Will Wagner breaks out, or Jonathan Clase, or Elvis Martinez. That's where we're at right now, folks. That's where we're at. And speaking of which, we got our last question here from Jake saying, "Let's be real. If the Jays somehow make playoffs, it's either going to be one of those crappy 3 wildcard spots. So do you feel confident that we'll be able to pull off anything more than a wildcard sweep, even if we squeak in?" Well, I'll say this, Jake. When I read your question, I mean, I love your optimism. If we even touch, a spot or two outside the wildcard berth by July, that's a win. that's a win for the Toronto Blue Jays. Like, if we're one spot away from wild card, dude, we are hitting our upside ceiling right now. So, I mean, do we even squeak in? No. Like, well, a lot would have to go right. And even if we did get to the playoffs, if we got swept, great year, everybody. The fact that we even got here with this team, with this core of guys, with these young dudes, with 1 year of Vlad left and this aging rotation and no bullpen, dude, that something magical happened this year. And maybe we got hope for the next year, but it ain't going to be that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's the bar has been lowered, right? The bar has been seriously lowered, actually, right? Walking into last year, I was saying that for me, now the expectation is, because at that point we'd been to the wild card several years in a row. You know, we got swept several years in a row as well. But for me, walking in the last season, it was you are now winning the wild card. And, ideally for me, I wanted to be able to go to the ALCS, but it's at the very least you're going far in like your game 5 of ALDS type thing. Obviously none of that happened. So now, I mean, if you make playoffs, like, fucking, like, get the parade going, guys. Like, seriously, like, put up a statue, like, that's where we're at this point. But it does feel like that is a far-reaching outcome.
I mean, to bring up the whole over-unders, our over-under line was 76.5. That is arguably 14, 13 games away from wild card. That's a lot of wins that we gotta find.
Make up, right?
That's too many.
And also, let's keep in mind too, there was a lot of people saying under that.
So we're
not even sure we're gonna get that many wins, let alone 15 additional ones.
Yeah.
So that is what is going on right now in the Blue Jays universe. Before we sign off, I put this poll into the chat 56 minutes ago. We have almost 500 total votes on it.
Shout out.
So I think that this is a really good indicator as to where the community is sitting right now. The question was, will the Blue Jays actually sign anyone big this offseason? And 72% of you said no.
If the big is Santander, Bregman, and Alonso, I would also be in no with you guys.
That's kind of what I was thinking when I wrote that out. So, that's where we're all at right now, everybody. I hope that the 72% of you and myself and Adam are all wrong, and maybe the Christmas present is in the mail. It was just a little bit late. But, folks, let us know your thoughts about all this in the comments down below. Should and thank you to everybody that has liked, subscribed this channel, and supported us over 2024. I promise you guys, even if the team is shit next year, lots of exciting content on the way for 2025.
Yeah, we can be your therapy, guys. Like, we all need to get together and be together. Because, what's the old expression? Misery loves company. There you go, guys. So, everyone, thank you. Hit that like button, subscribe to Blue Jays today. And as always,
go Jays, go!